Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff, Mosher, and Adam Caplan, the midweek mashup on Inside the Birds, presented by Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It's the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. And Adam, I wouldn't blame the Eagles if they wanted to go far away and stay in a resort after losing badly to the San Francisco 49ers, the second worst loss as far as margin of defeat in the Nick Sirianni era. But that first one was Dallas year one. They didn't play starters, so that one almost doesn't count. I have a couple of big picture thoughts that I want to go with you before we start to really, get into some of the transactions.
Mm-hmm.
I think you made a really good point that I hope everybody adheres to when we did the post game show, and that at the end of the day, it's a loss. It sucks, not so good, but don't need to really be so negative and think that you should never judge a team on its worst moment. The Eagles won a lot of games against a lot of good teams. And I do think that there's that buzzsaw element when you have an emotional game against Kansas City in the rain, an emotional game against Buffalo in the rain. And this was the game that San Francisco had circled all year long on the calendar. So there's a lot that goes into it. And, I think you can give the Eagles the benefit of the doubt here, even with some tough games coming up on the schedule. But while I would say don't look so deeply into how bad this loss is, because we've seen a lot on social media, fire this guy or this guy stinks or that guy stinks. I mean, they did win games with these coaches and with these personnel against good teams. So I wouldn't look so deeply into it, but I think you and I can also both agree that with their defense, as it's been for most of the year, the Eagles are going to have to cover that up to win a Super Bowl. There's nothing that's going to be, there's no magic elixir for what they are on defense.
Yeah, a panacea, if you will. So look, I gave Mike Gill this number, and I was just doing some research on how bad this defense has been on the back end and what they've given up. So last year, they ended the season in top. They were number 5 ranked in terms of production given up to quarterbacks, tight ends, wide receivers, yardage, and touchdowns. Take a guess what they're ranked right now.
I know they have one of the, if not the worst now, pass defense in the NFL, right?
They're ranked 32nd. Worst, you can't get any worse than 32nd. There aren't 33rd teams. There's just a website called the 33rd team, but the Eagles are ranked 32nd. Joe Banner, Mike Tannenbaum are the founders of that site. Great site. So anyway, right now, in terms of giving up quarterback yardage, quarterback touchdowns, wide receiver yardage, wide receiver touchdowns, running back yardage, running back touchdowns, tight end, same touchdowns to yardage, terrible. They're ranked 32nd. And as I try to explain on the postgame show, folks, when you're playing backup players, you're eventually going to get backup results. There's no way around it. You're going to get that. Also, this defense has aged a little bit. Yes, they have some really talented young players. But all of the superhuman plays by Hurts, who rescued them in the second half of the Buffalo and Kansas City games, it all came to a head because he couldn't rescue them. And we'll get into that, what we know, what we've heard, what we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And the defense just simply can't stop anybody. And we'll preview the Dallas game on Friday. Folks, it's not pretty. Dallas, I mean, when you look at Dallas and Dak Prescott, I know he's had a great schedule the last 6 games. Number 1 rated quarterback in the National Football League over the last 6 games, 20 touchdown passes. 20.
I mean, look, the Eagles already saw. I mean, he had a pretty good game against them in the loss and inches away from victory. I do have a concern I want to get into when we start to talk about the defense in this episode. So remind me to hit on that because it's a little bit of a bigger picture concern that I've got. I texted you about it at some point.
Yeah.
We'll talk to it. I mean, it just goes to when you start to see the same type of breakdown week after week after week specifically, and you know that that's not just talent. There's got to be another issue there. So we'll get into that. It's been a great week of content. It'll be a great week of content. Q&A was about as they had one of their best Q&As ever this week. I really encourage everybody to check it out. They did a good job of straddling the line of not trying to be too negative, but also pointing out some of the things I just mentioned, repetitive problems that can hold a team back. Like if you want to say last year special teams held the team back and cost them in the biggest game, you can say that. It definitely did. Well, this year, special teams has been good, but this year you can talk about certain things you're seeing in defense that might be what holds them back from winning it all. Cosell and Harbor will have their show Thursday morning. Derek Gunn had, trust me on this, people. He had a great gun-on-one interview with Angelo Cataldi. It's going to be out. And
Yeah.
I was shocked. And some people, how Angelo is. It's like you either love him or hate him. I
Sure.
don't think you'll listen to this interview and have any bad. It was a very fun, candid, entertaining interview about Angelo's take on Philadelphia sports right now, but B, also how he views his career in retrospect. I think that there are some really honest moments that would surprise some people. And then also what inspired him to write his book called Loud, which is really off the charts. It's already been sold out. So it's good stuff there.
Nice.
I hope everybody checks it out. And Gunner, thanks everybody and appreciates everybody hanging in with there as he goes through, his wife's recovery from her stroke. So it's all been great, as good as it can be. ITB pregame show will be 5:00 p.m. this weekend. Myself, Adams on Sunday, Greg Cosell, Jason Avant, as it's a night game. So it'll be a 5:00 start. And I still think our interview with Chuck Pagano, all week I've been thinking about how great it was for our Patreon members, Adam.
Yeah, him and Flip. And kudos, by the way, to Carl Stevenson. He asked such a great question because this wound up happening. So I asked John D. Filippo, we'll get back to Chuck in a second. I said, hey, John, we got a great question here. And Carl asked it, and other people asked about the play calling, particularly early in the game. But Carl talked about, what do you do when everything's scripted and it's not working with your quarterback? And John said, you go to your staples, you find what works for him where the quarterback is comfortable. And John did this with Wentz, particularly early in his career. In 16 as a rookie, the way he had a good rookie season. Obviously in 17, he was elite. Hurts was elite last year, not so much this year. But the odd thing about it was he got off to the good start the first two drives, and then he started struggling, holding onto the ball. We'll get into what we heard, but I thought that was a great question because what do you do when a guy's struggling? It's like, how does John talk about how you handle it?
Right.
And yeah, you do script, but you got to go off script. Sometimes you go back because they're still in your playbook. Okay, let's go back to these simple throws to get him accurate, get him comfortable. So it's a great question by Carl. And then Chuck Pagano outlined everything because the side worked for 2 seasons, was it? 1 or 2? 2?
It was either 1 or 2. Yeah. He was, yeah.
So he knows him really well, and he outlined kind of the coverages, and he watches a lot of Eagles games, so he was more than familiar with their personnel and the challenges that Sean's going through. So that was wonderful. So coming back later in December, former Raiders defense coordinator Paul Gunther will be back with us. Joe Banner should be back with us, for Eagles president, on Patreon, and then we got a couple other surprises. And next Tuesday, we should have our next live stream. We love doing those live streams with y'all who come in there. It's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great time. And again, you want to get involved, that's patreon.com/InsideTheBirds. Really good stuff there. Look forward to continue to feeding that channel as much as we can. All right, we're going to talk about some transactions. Let's pause real quick to hear a word from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right, so do you remember me joking about I think it was the last podcast, or maybe the one before that? We were talking about Shaq Leonard, and I said, it's really not the Eagles' style to sign a guy like this until they really lose and badly and realize they need him. And I made the Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh joke from last year. They were fine, then they lost to Washington, then all of a sudden they had to make these signings at player areas they were thin. Well, that feels like what happened, right? I mean, I'm it's not A to Z like that, but obviously the Eagles lost. Obviously their linebacker position got exposed, but obviously also they were looking at him before they lost, and whatever it is that went through Shaq Leonard's mind, maybe he watched that game and said, yep, I'm going to sign with the Eagles. I think I can play.
Well, look, no, they made an offer, so did Dallas last week, and it was just he had to make a decision. That's where they left it, and he made a decision Monday. That's exactly where they left it. So they never had to work him out, as we told you that no team would work him out. It would make no sense. They have the coaching tape. Did take the physical last week, which he passed. He He was in their building for a day. Then obviously he signed on Monday. And it's, by the way, a 1-year deal only means the current season. So he signed through the rest of the regular season and playoffs. He's scheduled to be an unrestricted free agent in March. So we'll see how he does at 28 years old. What does he have left? Nobody knows. And that's the interesting part about this. The Eagles thought his coaching tape was good enough that they signed him, as we kind of predicted would happen. Sirianni, Patullo, Marcus Brady, and the tight ends coach Jason Michael would talk to him on the phone, or whatever, however they did it, Skyped him. I don't know what, Zoom. They spoke to him. Maybe that was maybe they told him how badly they needed him, which is true, by the way. And look, here we are, as you said, moving forward here. The only question now is, does he start on Sunday? Because we let's see, did Linval Joseph? Did Linval Joseph
Yes.
and Dominic and Soup play the same week they signed?
Yes, I think it's a
incredible.
little bit. I think it's a little bit easier. And not taking anything away from Linval Joseph, because he actually played really, really well in his debut, right?
Yeah.
But it's sort of a little bit easier when you're like, your job is, clog hole, stop run, or get quarterback, as opposed to, are you defending the run? Are you defending the pass? Are you doing it out of man? Are you doing it out of zone? And I think your point is really valid here too, is that there's some questions to be answered that I think if we had Nick Sirianni and Sean Desai on this podcast with us at this moment and shot them up with True Serum, they still wouldn't be able to answer the question, because they have to see, I know they watch his tape, but they have to see how he performs in practice with them in their defense to know what he can and can't do. It's not like playing Linval Joseph where you're like, just go stop the run. You know how to do that. You're a veteran, right? So today is what, Wednesday? This will be the first practice of the week. So they've got a lot of observing to do. Do I think he'll play? Yeah. I mean, if he's got a pulse, he's probably going to play, especially if Zach Cunningham.
No, he's definitely playing. That's not the question.
He's going to play, right?
Yeah.
But the question is, like you said,
I don't know how. I don't know. Here's the thing. So he's only played in a 43 front. He came in after Pagano was fired in 2017. So he came in. He was drafted in 18. So we don't know right now, what is he capable of doing. It's kind of like you're saying. Is he a third down specialist? Can they give him a package of plays where he could just cover the tight end? Like, who knows? But as you said, they're going to have to get through practice this week. They'll know through 3 practices or whatever they're going to call it today. Is it going to be a walkthrough plus 2? I would assume they're going to just do walkthroughs right now. There's how tired they have to be. But the bottom line is they had to do this. It can't be any worse than they have, and it can only be an upgrade, however they want to do it. And they got a rebound, man. They got a rebound. This was a very bad performance overall by the football team. No, as you said, we don't think they're anywhere near as badly as they were, but we knew the results clearly have not been good enough. They've gotten away with some things. I really like what BG said. Brandon Graham was interviewed somewhere. A couple of the players talked about it. They had this coming to them because they just got by against Kansas City and Buffalo, in particular, and now they got it handed to them. This should get them straight, man. I'm not. We'll get to the preview on Friday, but I'm thinking, and especially if Goedert plays, we'll get to the injuries in a couple of minutes. Their health is actually fairly good, but I believe they're just going to. It's Dallas. I believe this is going to right them. I really do. I'm not saying we know they've got flaws. We talked about this for several weeks, unlike last season when they had really nothing, no flaws. Other than special teams. Special teams right now is a strength, believe it or not. Bottom line, this is going to set them straight. I do believe what the player said. I
do believe that there will be a wake-up call element to this game. I 100% agree with that. All right, so moving on we'll get to more on the defense and Shaq. Obviously, the Eagles also made some other moves. They released wide receiver Cam Sims off the practice squad on Tuesday. It was sort of like a we hardly knew ye type of move because they had just brought him in the week before. And the bigger news is that safety Justin Evans, as we have been talking about, he did not make it through the 21-day window and back onto the 53. So that means he is done for the rest of the year, I believe, and also the playoffs, correct?
Cannot play for any shape or form. That's the way it is. It doesn't matter to the Super Bowl. Cannot play. Officially, he was activated into the 21 window on November 14th. Tuesday, officially, his season ended. It's unfortunate. Yeah. So yeah, they could really use him. They really could use him. They did not, by the way, we'll just mention very quickly. They did not work any players out on Monday or Tuesday. They did work a really interesting player out last week. Terrell Lewis, who's a big time pass rusher at Alabama, big
I
guy,
remember.
6'4",
Yeah.
6'5". Yep. Now they cross-trained him late in his career at the Rams to play a little bit of inside linebacker, but he's more of an outside linebacker. He was a third-round pick of the Rams in 2020. So we'll see if they revisit that. That'd be a good guy to put on the practice squad, to be honest with you. That would be a good guy to have there. But yeah, so with now that it's official with Justin Evans, so you're looking at right now, they're still going with three safeties, Byard and Blankenship and Sidney Brown, who doesn't really play very much. On the practice squad, you've got Kershaw Scott as nickel,
Right.
Mario Goodrich, and Mekhi Garner has played some safety, not a lot. So
McCollum.
it's McCollum, right? He is. Now he's technically a safety. Good point. But it's thin, man. It's they have no experience. If somebody gets hurt, this is a gamble, but this is where they're at, so they can't afford any more injuries.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right. Anything else on Shaq Leonard that you wanted to? I think we've covered everything from what our personnel people have told, and we'll listen. We're all in the same boat. We're in wait and see approach. We just got to see how he is in this defense and how much he can handle in his first week. All right, we will. I want to go through playoff scenarios in just 1 second because they're sort of fascinating. First, as we've been talking about, it's getting so dark so early. That means winter is approaching. Everyone's getting their holiday shopping done. Nobody's got time to sit there and make a meal. At least we don't. That's why we love HelloFresh. They deliver farm fresh food with pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes right to our doorstep. We don't waste time standing in line at the grocery store because America's #1 meal kit helps make home cooking easy, efficient, and affordable. With HelloFresh, the shopping's already done. The perfect amount of ingredients arrive with step-by-step recipe cards. Does not get more efficient than that. Plus, HelloFresh saves you time and money. HelloFresh is 25% less expensive than takeout, so you get a home-cooked meal without digging deep into your wallet. Don't forget about taste and selection. They got steak, they got chicken, seafood, risotto, vegetarian meals. They got everything you want. So go to HelloFresh.com/50Eagles. Use the promo code 50Eagles. That's one word, 50 Eagles, for 50% off plus free shipping. HelloFresh.com/50Eagles and use the promo code 50Eagles, one word, for 50% off plus free shipping. Act now to get America's #1 meal kit. Okay, so the playoff scenario. I always love the playoff scenarios this time of the year because there are it almost reads like the partridge in a pear tree type thing. Like this gotta lose, they gotta win. You need help from him. You
know
need
what's
help
funny?
from them.
You know what's funny? Speaking of getting help, they didn't need much help last week. They would have won. The scenarios were so thin because if they won, only one or two things that had to happen for them to get in. Now it's like, okay, for instance, Eagles have to win, Seattle has to lose. Eagles win, Rams lose. Eagles win, Packers and Vikings lose, they're in. Eagles win, Packers and Lions lose, they're in.
Yeah.
Rams lose and Seattle loses, they're in. Rams lose, Minnesota. The bottom line is they need to win. They need certain other things to happen. Look, we know they're going to the playoffs. That's not. They can't clinch anything else other than a playoff spot this week.
Right.
But the easiest ones are they win, Seattle loses. They win, the Rams lose. They win, Packers lose, Vikings lose, or they win, Packers lose, and Lions lose. That's that.
And a partridge.
There you go.
Enough of that.
I'm going to go out on
I'm going to go out on a crazy limb here and say the Eagles are going to make the playoffs at some point this year.
Yeah.
They're going to qualify for the playoffs. I believe that they will. Is that a crazy prediction or what?
Yeah, we don't, and we also don't have the magic number. You know, the Phillies in baseball, the magic number is 7, 5.
Yes.
We don't know what the magic number is for them to actually clinch the division.
Right.
But it doesn't matter. So we're in only week 14 here. So it's going to be fascinating. This gauntlet. Okay, they did lose. We figured. I thought they'd lose 2 in the gauntlet. They've lost 1. I'm counting, by the way, Seattle because that's a travel game, and Seattle did a number on Dallas' defense. That was pretty interesting. That was an awesome game last Thursday night.
Right.
But bottom line is, okay, those are scenarios, and we move on.
All right, let's move on to injuries. And as you said, it's a much better picture now than it was maybe a week ago and certainly a couple of months ago. The most encouraging thing, and you hit this very close on. I mean, you were on the head last week that Goedert was kind of hoping that he could get on the field and make the recovery in time. He did get on the practice field a little bit, so we'll have to see. It's you hope that it gets ramped up this week. He's got a shot if he can get on the
Very
field
good
and
shot.
to play, and that would be a big addition.
That's what the only appear this week. He did confirm he had surgery on his left broken forearm. They put a plate in. Good question by Hugh Douglas.
Mm-hmm.
And he explained kind of the process and when he had it. He had it a couple days after he got hurt. And the doctor said his forearm, this is typical with when they put the plate in, that the arm would be stronger than it was before he got hurt. So it's just interesting. And it's typically a 4 to 6 week recovery, which we told you when it happened. This is week 4. I never do percentages unless the team actually tells me this. And no one, the teams generally won't tell you percentages, but I'd say the chances are pretty good that he plays this week. Again, got to get to the end of the week. It's a doctor's decision on the healing.
Right.
Simple as that. If they clear him, here we go. Because they are getting crushed at the 10 end position in production. They're not getting any really at all. Like they got a little bit last year with Calcaterra and Stoll. They're not getting that this season. We get it. Calcaterra's come back from an ankle injury. So that is that. We'll see what happens. We'll have more for you obviously Friday. And I'm sure he's going to work this week. By the way, if he gets a full practice, it's almost certainly he's playing. That's another thing for you all to look at. If he gets full practices, he's right there. Zach Cunningham, unlikely. I put him in the very questionable to doubtful category. The only chance he has, if by Friday, if he gets a limited practice in, you start upping the chances. He's got older players with hamstring injuries. Not all these, what's he, 28, 29?
No, but he's sort of an older player in mileage,
Yeah.
and if you count the injuries, you get the point. He's got a lot of wear and tear on.
Yes. What a story, by the way, what a story he's been. Yeah, he's actually 29. He actually turns 29 on the 12th of this month. But this is a great signing. I didn't know what to expect with his injury history. This has been because remember, we went to training camp and he just had gotten there.
Mm-hmm.
Him and what's the guy's name? Miles Jack. They signed the same day. And they were at that Sunday night practice. I'm like, man, Cunningham's tall. I forgot how tall he was, over 6'3". And he, as you pointed out several times, he had not been a real liability in coverage that we thought he would be.
Mm-hmm.
And here we go. So, they need to get him back. It'll be interesting to see what happens once Cunningham plays, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say Shaq Leonard looks like he's got something. Let's say he's got more than Julio Jones left in the tank comparatively, where Julio clearly can't start, where Shaq Leonard certainly could possibly start. You got Cunningham, Morrow, Leonard, right? As those three, how they divvy it up, it will be interesting.
That will be interesting. Yeah, the stylistically so different between the way Nick Morrow plays and the way we've seen Shaq Leonard play. Again, kind of got to see the way Shaq Leonard plays now, though, to even really know. But when you say, what if he's playing well? But I'd say, as a downhill linebacker, or as a zone dropping linebacker. Yeah, that's why we just have to wait and see how it goes. All right, so that's with the Eagles, right? And not to make too much of this, Dallas Goedert's impact was his absence was felt in the red zone this last game, I think. I cannot empirically prove that if he was on the field that the Eagles get touchdowns instead of field goals, but I think it gives them a better opportunity to get touchdowns instead of field goals. And as you know, when you're facing the 49ers, Adam, if you can get up 14-0, I mean, the Eagles dominated the first quarter. The Niners had negative yards in the first quarter.
I know.
I wonder what that game would have been like if the Eagles could have been up 10-0 instead of 6 or 14.
Yeah.
Because then you force potentially Kyle Shanahan to have to call the game differently. And not because everything they do is off play action and run action. And if they have to be more 11 personnel than 21, which they killed the Eagles out of 21 personnel, then you wonder if I know I'm trying to draw a line from A to Z here just by Dallas Goedert. Make no mistake, I'm not saying that if they had Goedert, they win that game, but maybe the complexion of the game is a little bit different if they have him.
Well, he won't change down 10-0. They don't do that. But if they were down 14-0, as you said, that changes it. Now, it depends, obviously, how much time's left in the game. you always have to look at, okay, if it's 14-0 after one quarter and they have -6 yards, which they had, okay.
Mhm.
And Kyle actually talked about that. It's funny you bring that up. He talked about it after the game because he just said we couldn't do anything right. We were hard, he went over, they shut us down, whatever the case may be, but they stay the course, man.
Mhm.
When they had their 3-game losing streak, they just were Purdy turned it over a little bit. They gave up some big explosives on defense. But they right now are the best team in the National Football. They are dominant. They are really, really good in a league where there's in a season where there's a lot of parity. They're the only true dominant team right now. I mean, it's called like it is. They're really good.
Mhm.
They got over through their tough spot. But getting back to the injury situation, oh, that's it. By the way, there were no players listed in game with injuries. Now, we've talked about this for 5 or 6 years now.
I knew you were
The
gonna say this.
dreaded midweek pop up. Hoping we don't. Hopefully for fantasy for y'all who've had, I have Ramondre Stevenson on too many teams, and it's going to cost me.
Me too.
But I'm hoping that there's nothing else, because if they get Goedert back this week, and see, I've always felt you could expose those corners with Dallas. I know Diggs he gives up big plays, he makes big plays. I mean, Bland too. Diggs did, and he's on.
It's almost the same,
Right,
right? Same label
right.
for both.
And he set an NFL record with most pick sixes, but he's given up plays. He got taken to the woodshed in that game by DK Metcalf. So I'm really looking forward to this pregame show with Yvonne Cosell, how they see this. Because, by the way, the Eagles, if you gamble, the Eagles have gone over the total 5 of their last 6 games.
Mhm.
And there's a reason for it, because they're not stopping anyone. And Dallas got exposed. So that 52.5, 53-point total is a lot. But you don't have to worry about weather this time. I promise you.
All right, good stuff. Now let's talk about Cowboys real quick. Anywhere else?
Yeah.
Injuries for them?
No one.
No one, right? I mean,
no one. No.
so the guys that are hurt are just the ones who are on IR, right? Which is Overshawn,
That's it.
Evander English, and
Yeah.
Trayvon. Okay, so yeah, so everybody else is healthy, like you said. I just wanted to make sure that was
Yeah,
it.
no one. In fact, the only guy who was even thought of that might have an issue is Rico Dowdle, the backup running back. He's had an
Right.
lingering ankle injury, but he's fine. Yeah, Overshown, who would have started the rookie towards ACL in August, he's done. Vander Esch with the neck problems, he's done for the season.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, because they're so thin at linebacker, they're playing 2 young kids who are smaller, by the way.
Right.
And Diggs, as we mentioned, with the ACL, and they're super deep at corner though. Dallas, it's just, I felt if Dan Quinn cannot get pressure, you could throw against them.
Mm-hmm.
And when the Eagles smell blood, the Eagles thought they smelled blood.
Mm-hmm.
And I told you the pregame that this is a throw ball game, and they tried it. It didn't quite work as well, but that's not going to stop them. I'll be so fascinated to see what their approach is, because we're going to get into it in a couple minutes here about our final thoughts.
Yeah.
And moving forward here.
Yep.
This run game was atrocious.
Yep.
I know they didn't commit to it. I get all that, but there's a reason, and we got a little bit more information here, and we'll explain to you kind of what our thoughts are from talking to some people about it.
Definitely. All right, so that's it for the injuries. Injuries are frustrating, Adam, no matter when they are or who has them. You know what's also frustrating is trying to find reasonable tickets online these days. But that's why there's Game Time, the Game Time app. It's the fast, easy way to buy tickets for sporting events, concerts, theater shows near you, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Right now on the Game Time app. Get your phone out, download the Game Time app. Right now, you're 2 taps away from tickets to seeing the Birds, Flyers, Sixers, local college hoops, the Nutcracker. It's holidays time. Everybody loves to see the Nutcracker at the Academy of Music, comedians at Helium. So many great events to attend. And the best part is Game Time offers event cancellation protection, even job loss protection. Who does that? Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind.
Here it is. By the way,
purchase.
Here it is. I'm holding it up. I just downloaded it off of Google Play. Go ahead.
Nice. No, good. They're all in prices, show you the total up front, and you can see the view from your seat so you know exactly what to expect at checkout. Game Time is obsessed with helping you save money. They offer deals right up to the start of an event, even an hour after it. There are zone deals let you pick the section while Game Time picks the seats to give you the best savings. They also have the Game Time guarantee, which makes sure that you get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time credits you 110% the difference. So download the Game Time app. You just saw Adam did it. Create an account. Use the code BIRDS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the redeem code BIRDS, BIRDS, for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Okay. Well, I don't think anybody would purchase tickets to re-watch, certainly no Eagles fans, to re-watch the 49ers versus the Eagles. We'll start off with the offense first. And you know what's amazing is I'm watching the All-22, and literally on the first play of the game, Adam, you kind of see how it's going to be indicative of a long night for the Eagles. I know that there are different people personnel wise and who play the game who may have different perspectives on it. I've already talked to a few.
Yep.
But
yes,
so the Niners come out in what looks like cover 2, right? The Eagles are passing, as you said, they're ready to pass 2-by-2 formation. And the Niners come out in what looks like cover 2, but right at the snap, one of the safeties, I think it's Jair Brown, runs toward the middle. So it's really a cover 3. The two corners back up a little bit. The safety stays deep and the other safety runs in. But that guy's running in, the safety, in the same spot where the tight end Stoll is running out. So they're literally like two trains crossing in opposite directions in the night, right? And the safety kind of slips because now he's got to realizes Stoll gets a step or two on him. And Jalen, it looks like when you're looking at tape, Jalen sees it, but he doesn't throw it. And there's two schools of thought on this. One is that maybe if it's Dallas Goedert and he's got more confidence, he throws it. There's another school of thought, Adam, that when you see a too high shell and you're expecting too high, then you're expecting your receivers to be open in certain spots, right? You wouldn't throw to that spot versus too high where Stoll's going to be, because that's right between a linebacker and a safety, and you can get that picked off. Remember, he did that against Tampa. All right, that's the throw you're not supposed to make against a cover 2.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Now it's hard to process it right as it's changing at the snap. But you'll talk to people and they say, man, when you see it though, you see it. He's wide open and Jalen didn't throw it. And that's sort of indicative of some of the night. I'm not putting this all on Jalen. There's a lot of things we'll get to, but there were definitely throws that were there that for whatever reason he didn't want to make. And then he definitely left the pocket at times too early.
Yeah. All right. So the last point you made, this has been an ongoing issue for him, that he's moving when he shouldn't move and he leaves when he should leave. This is what the tape shows. We're told by multiple people. It started actually in the New England game, and it's occasionally come up. See, last year he actually did it, but when he would do it, it wouldn't last long, and he got himself back together, and he was awesome. Here, it's ongoing. You see it, and he corrects it. You see it, he corrects it, and he's been inconsistent this season. He's been good, but not very good or great.
Right.
And now there are a lot of schools of thought. I've talked to a lot of people about this because this has been an ongoing issue for him. We haven't talked about it enough, but we're certainly going to talk about it right now because it's a big issue. Sometimes when quarterbacks, I got this from a very strong league source. Well, sometimes when quarterbacks sign extensions, they feel like, hey, they got to do more. They overthink. This has been, I've heard this for years, and I just got this over the weekend. I don't know, Sunday night, or I can't remember what it was, but anyway, it was very recent. And sometimes guys just try to do too much at that quarterback position. They feel like they have more responsibility.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes he's trying to be a hero. I know we brought this up before. He's trying to make the big play. This came up in the New England game where it's there. He would take some place clearly there for whatever reason. We know he loves to throw the ball. He was so good at last year. It's incredible. And then I kind of laugh at the people say he's not a pocket passer. It's just completely false. Did you watch last year?
Yeah, when he stays in the pocket, he's very good at
phenomenal. Yeah, the stuff we saw in 21 where he clearly struggled in the pocket, he was phenomenal last year. So you can throw that out. He just needs to be decisive, as you brought up at the beginning here. See it, throw it. The anticipation throws, which he got better at last year, we're not seeing that enough. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I think with him, there's a trust element. As you just mentioned, that leads to indecision. I think he's actually very good at diagnosing and very good at understanding when a defense might like say it looks too high, but they're usually one high in this situation, or they're one high safety. I think they're going to be too high and being right and making the right decision. He doesn't throw a ton of balls in harm's way every once in a while, but for the most part, he knows where he wants to go with the ball. I just feel like he doesn't trust it all the time. That leads him to bailing the pocket because he knows he can make great plays, second reaction plays outside the pocket, and that he trusts himself more to do that. And I think in this game in particular, let's talk about the offensive line and what we've seen and heard. Like I feel like the Eagles did a good job of keeping Bosa and Chase Young off of Jalen Hurts. There weren't a ton of sacks, but I will say that I think that both in the run and pass game, it was too often that the Niners defensive line was playing on the Eagle side of scrimmage. So they weren't getting sacks, but they were pinching the pocket. They were creating pressure. They were even against the run, they were pushing guys. But the term is resetting the line of scrimmage. The Eagles offensive line at its heyday does that better than anybody. I felt that the Niners defensive line did a good job of generating push, and that made Jalen, from just watching how he reacted, a little itchy out there. I think he could have hung in there a couple times and let Lane and Jordan and Dickerson and Kelsey kind of give them that extra half a second to anchor, but it looked to me like he wasn't feeling that.
To give you an idea of this, I can't remember last time we talked about this. The Niners had an unusually high number of passes defense. They had 11. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like that tells you that they were able to deflect some passes away, and they were on the receivers that weren't getting open enough, or if they were, the Niners deflected. I just thought it was odd, but yeah, I thought overall though the Eagles' offensive line played really well. Bosa had his moments. Lane Johnson was awesome.
Yes.
They, as expected, they moved Bosa around a little bit, Young around a little bit, but overall they really held their ground. That was not the problem. The problem is Hurts has got to be more decisive, as we said. And the other thing the thing that was really odd. Remember, I think I texted you this like 5 minutes into the game. I'm like, why is Gainwell in so early? Like they were rotating Swift and Gainwell liberally, and then they did the spin the wheel, put Boston Scott in. It just is weird. And I know Sirianni was asked about it on Monday. Like the other part of it, obviously, Gainwell's their hurry up back. We've known that for 2 years. And we get it. He's their best pass protector. I understand that from a coaching standpoint. It makes total sense. I'm not going to question that. But yes, they didn't run the ball well when they ran it. They got to run the ball better. But here's the one thing I would have liked to have seen: the run game. When your quarterback's not seeing it, the thing that I've learned, I started doing this with Ron Jaworski and Greg Cosell 20 years ago. Jaws would tell me that sometimes one of the best ways to settle your quarterback down when he's not seeing it, in addition to give him easy throws, which we were talking about earlier, maybe run it a little bit more, maybe just to settle him down. Don't put so much on him.
Yeah,
because he's overthinking. There's just something off about Hurts this season. No one could quite put their finger on it. We've given you some theories. Nobody really knows.
Yeah.
But the hope here is when they run it, they're more effective. And I guess Kelsey talked about it after the game. He can understand why they didn't run the ball as much, because they weren't effective. This staff, Andy Reid was the same way. If they don't see it early with the run, it's over. You could talk about banning the run game. That's just not. They don't want to be a running team, but we've seen them when they get off to good starts. Sometimes they stay with it. But this was the throw ball game, folks, and they came in thinking one thing, and there was plays to be made, but number one's got to do a better job.
Jason Avant made a really good point in Q&A. He said DeAndre Swift is not Christian McCaffrey, but he has similar traits in what he can do to a defense as far as running the ball, catching the ball, using him in orbit motion. Like he has a skill set that makes him able to do more than just run the ball, right? Or more than just catch a dump off. And it made me wonder if some of the early stuff that they tried to do with DeAndre Swift that didn't work. I remember there was an interception that Jalen threw because Swift had a two-way route and the communication wasn't there. And people said it was Jalen Hurts' fault because DeAndre did the right thing. You're supposed to run. You're supposed to cut inside against a blitz like that. So I wonder if the coaching staff feels that there's not a good enough rhythm between Jalen Hurts and his running backs in the passing game to do more than just Like he'll dump it off. He throws dump offs fine.
Yeah,
He throws screens fine, but you're just not seeing a ton of wheel routes, Texas
I
routes,
know.
angle
I know.
routes. You saw them earlier in the year. They didn't work. And I just wonder, again, Miles Sanders caught balls from who? From Carson Wentz? Yeah, I mean, he caught
Downfield.
passes.
Downfield. Yeah,
Yeah,
downfield,
downfield, and
actually.
that changed
Yeah.
when Jalen became the guy. I remember speaking to somebody saying, don't put it all on Miles because quarterbacks have different angles. Carson's 6'5", he sees everything. Jalen Hurts sees it differently. They throw from different angles, and that could also be a reason why you don't see this quarterback throw it to running backs like the last one did. So maybe it's just not there for them.
Well, remember in training camp, though, we did see it. I understand you can't hit a quarterback. You can't touch a quarterback in training camp.
Yeah.
My God, that was when I was like, oh my God, they're going to be throwing the ball at backs this year. And yeah, the targets are way up. The lack of explosives past 10 yards. I know you're not going to get a lot of them, but I like to see it occasionally.
Yeah.
We talk about it, seems like every 3 or 4 weeks we don't see it. In fact, I guess at this point we're not going to see it because they brought some really cool stuff up out after the bye in the Buffalo Kansas City game. But it is what it is. But yeah, I thought the running game, the odd rotation early in the game, I didn't quite understand it. And then how about Quez Watkins? Okay, so it was a throw ball game. Watkins played a ton of snaps. I know they were behind, but did you expect that much?
Well, like you said, they clearly thought that they could stress the Niners secondary vertically, and they have a backup safety in there, and they tried to. They wanted to.
Yeah.
And so if you want to stress a team vertically, yeah, you're going to play Watkins a little bit more than say Julio. Julio's kind of been sort of a slot receiver for them so far, and Zaccheaus has been a slot receiver. So even though I agree with you, it's a little strange because Zaccheaus made a big play. It seems like when Zaccheaus is in, he makes a big play. It was definitely more of a Watkins inside game, and that was a little surprising to me.
And then the other thing is, wow, they clearly made an attempt to get Albert Okwuegbunam.
Yeah.
Alberto, a lot of work. You got a season high 32 snaps, 44% of the snaps.
Yeah. Got open a couple of times.
What's that?
Got open a couple of times.
Yeah. Yeah. He didn't get it sometimes.
Yeah.
It was interesting. They did a ton of 11. It was a heavy 11 game, some 10.
Yep.
But it was more 11 than I expected. Watkins is just look, it's always an adventure with them. I get it. But it's not like the Niners didn't see this 2 years ago when he had the 91-yard catch. They were ready for it. No question about it.
They were. You're right. And what really jumped out to me was how much spread, how much empty formations they were in. I mean, it makes sense because that makes you have to really, A, you get a good one-on-one situations, and B, you got to get rid of the ball when you've got no back there or no tight end in there to help you out. So there was a decent amount of that. They were really trying to get those isolated matchups. And the first quarter, man, they were getting them. They got that cover one man. So they were able to get that slant to AJ Brown. And then they got it.
Two of them.
Yeah, they got another one to Quez Watkins. But I will say this, man, I got to give the Niners a lot of credit, Adam. There were some plays, like you said, the offensive line was trying its best. It was holding up Jalen at time. That Niners secondary was sticky on some really big third downs. They did a good job. I got to give them credit. They weren't considered a great secondary, but they were definitely, especially in the first half, second quarter and early third, when things were starting to get away at them, where I was impressed by how their corners and interior and safeties defended in the pass game. The Niners don't play a ton of man. But when they did, they played it well. So sometimes they say they get paid too.
Okay, a couple of things they did. I'm just looking at text. I got it from a league source. They did a really good job in negating the scramble throws. Did a really good job hemming them in when they needed to. Wilkes caught a great game. They went back. They pretty much went back to what happened in the championship game. And they made a lot of corrections. They saw what the Eagles were trying to do. They did a good job. I mean, like you said, I know Hurts helped them a little bit because there was throws he should have made for whatever reason. But overall, that's the offense. We'll see what happens when they get to Dallas. But time to get into the defense.
Yes. By the way, they double spied Hurts in the red zone. Double spied him to take away that run, that quarterback run up the middle. So
there you go.
That was an interesting technique right there. All right, let's move over to the Eagles defenses. Oh boy, a lot to get into. First, I want to remind everybody to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams for the fan, by the fan, is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation. Let's also pause to hear a word from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you happen to stop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. If not, you can always visit them at SkyMotorCars.com. Where do you want to start with Eagles defense? I mean,
front. I mean, look, the pressure numbers are kind of funny because the pressure numbers weren't bad, but the coaching term is true pressure. They didn't get very much true pressure. That's when you affect the quarterback. Very little. Brock Purdy was so comfortable back there. You know what the crazy thing, for all the numbers he put up, it was misdirection stuff. It's your typical Niner stuff. Yes, they hit a couple crossers, but Brock Purdy only completed 19 passes.
I know.
He only attempted 20s. Kyle Shanahan must have loved the final numbers because Kyle is, he's the one coach who could get it done. He's a big balance coach. He loves balance. He's his openers. He wants a certain amount of runs, certain amount of passes in his openers, 25 scripted plays.
Right.
And man, they got him. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, Ayuk got him early on the touchdown, the anticipation throw where you could question whether it should have been a touchdown, but it was. Samuel broke their back, 7 touches, 3 touchdowns. Kittle got him, did it again, although he didn't catch every target. They just look, they didn't really get enough pressure, too comfortable. They tried some stuff, it didn't work.
So the Eagles were not physical. It's the first time this year that I felt like and again, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I just think that, they've been playing these big games week after week and maybe just didn't have the freshest legs, but they did not tackle well. Yes, they missed a lot of tackles, but they also didn't go after the ball. I mean, everybody who follows Inside the Birds or who's on social media has probably already seen Darius Slay and Seth Joyner going at it. And I got to say, like, I don't always agree with Seth, and I would never say that they played scared. I don't think that's fair.
Yeah.
I just think that they were a step slow, a step behind, and just did not. And again, the 49ers are circling it. They're trying the 49ers blocked Adam, a safety, like Reed Blankenship with wide receivers on running plays. Like this was the block to win the Super Bowl. In fact,
I know
he got knocked on his ass a couple of times just on a run that wasn't even in his direction. The Niners were making a statement, and the Eagles after the first quarter were just having a tough time. So I am not as concerned about that because we don't see a repetitive history of the Eagles not tackling or not playing physically well. If it happens again, then you and I have a conversation, right? What I am more concerned about is the 2 or 3 times again that the Eagles did not switch off correctly against a trips formation, against a bunch formation, or when you study motion all week long and you still motion you get caught up in the eye candy and out of place because Adam, like it's week 13 now, and how you can have Bradley
14.
Roby or 14, how you can have Bradley Roby back and Kevin Byard, who's a veteran, and we're not talking about high level stuff here. We're talking about, all right, are you taking this guy? I take that guy. All right, I'm going to press the point man. We're going to play top hat, whatever. That stuff, you can't go 14 weeks in a season and continuously make that mistake. So I mentioned this at the top of the show, Adam. I have to have a little bit of concern about defensive back coaching. The Eagles have 3 different coaches. They lost Denard Wilson, and I'm starting to in the offseason, and I'm starting to wonder if that has had a huge impact because you cannot be into December now and make the same communication mistake. Adam, there was 3 times where 2 Eagles are on one guy and one other guy is open. Like you can't leave guys wide open.
That can't happen.
Juwan Jennings gets the 20-yarder across the middle because nobody's on him. Ricks and Byard are covering Kittle.
it's unbelievable. The Niners run the same stuff every week, and Kyle's the best space creator in the National Football League. He schemes guys open. It's ridiculous. It's the same stuff. It's deep crossers, crossing routes. Everything's in between the hashes. Okay, you know it's coming, but they don't stop it. And it's interesting when Byard first got interviewed after the first game that they played. He talked about the communications got to be better, right? You move it fast forward after the bye and these games, communication's inconsistent. Bradbury talked about it after the game. Like this shouldn't be happening. It's now week 14.
Right.
You know, Mike McCarthy and Brian Schottenheimer see this. They see the tape. You know it's coming. They're going to run some of that stuff. They'll run the motion stuff. The Eagles have not been a good motion defense anyway. They've had their struggles. So you know it's coming. Nobody runs more motion than the Dolphins and the Niners. They run the same scheme.
Yeah.
And you know it's coming. I mean, it's not good. They got to do a better job. And the thing is, these guys are accountable. Like it's a super accountable locker room. That's the thing about these guys. They care. The tape is the true serum.
Yep.
They're going to they'll do the best they can with it, and they know they have to improve. And because as you're alluding to, you know it's not going to stop. Teams are going to do this to them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they've really got to figure this thing out if there's still time to do it. I'm going to put some stuff either today or tomorrow on InsideTheBirds.com with some GIFs showing some of these issues that just can't happen this late in the season. The biggest one to me that really jumpstarts San Francisco, right? They're down 6-0. It's second quarter, right? They really need to get back into the game and move the ball because they had -6 yards at them in the first quarter.
I know.
They couldn't do anything, right? So everybody will remember that George Kittle caught that he leaks out to the right, catches a pass wide open, 32 yards, and that sets up the touchdown that they get to Ayuk eventually, right? Well, if you look at that play, it was the first time that the Eagles had big nickel. So they have Sidney Brown out there, and he's in the slot. The other two safeties are in the back. Everyone's playing zone. Deebo Samuel comes orbit motion and then, comes out and runs a route in front of Sidney Brown. If everybody's playing zone, then you gotta stay in your zone, right? He, for whatever reason, Sidney Brown, maybe he thought he was in man, maybe it was miscommunication, but he literally followed Deebo all the way to the other side of the field. He followed Deebo all the way to North Philly. Okay. So, but Kittle, who just he was coming across to make a block on Hassan Reddick. Then he comes out into the area where Sidney Brown's supposed to be, and there's nobody there. Like you're in a big game. You can't have that happen.
You got to know what the rules are, right?
Yeah.
On switches. Yeah. You can't do that. So yeah, it was Brown, by the way, only played 7 snaps on defense.
Well, no wonder why after that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might have been why, who knows, but the miscommunication is it's killer because you got enough veterans out there. I get it. They've got a lot of issues with depth. The guys who shouldn't be playing are playing. It is what it is. They're still 10-2, folks. I was saying to Mike Gill on Tuesday, it's in our Football at 4 segment. It's kind of I don't know if I call it a minor miracle. They're 10-2. It's still the best record in the National Football League with all their injury issues and lineup changes and new coaches. It's a tribute to the mental toughness. They'll figure it out. I don't worry about it. But you got to be real here. You're playing guys who you don't know what to expect from week to week because the Christian Ellis is supposed to be a 4th or 5th linebacker, only playing some special teams.
Right.
Plays 44 snaps, 75% of the snaps.
Yep.
That's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. Teams know this. They have the information. They know what the tape looks like from college or preseason, and these guys are getting exposed. It's just that Morrow, who had played very well up to this past game, he played, by the way, played every snap. This is not ideal. You don't want Nick Morrow playing every snap. You'd like him to figure out some roles here, and we'll see with Shaq Leonard, see how they do it.
Kind of felt bad as we end this on Nick Morrow on the play where the Eagles were in man because it's 3rd and 3. You can't really play zone a lot on 3rd and 3 because they'll just run on you, right? The 49ers are great. So they ran that wheel route from McCaffrey past to Nick Morrow. He runs it up the left side, and Nick Morrow on Christian McCaffrey is like me trying to outrun Usain Bolt. Like it's just not happening. So I think it wound up being the longest air pass for Brock Purdy of the day. Just, it wasn't even a great route, to be honest with you. He just in out, and then all of a sudden he's got a 33-yard catch. So I feel bad for Nick Morrow or anybody who has to be put in that situation, but that's what the Niners do to you. I agree with you. This is such a negatively tinged content, right? Because the results sucked for one game. And so we have to go through it. I do agree on the idea of the Eagles' response to adversity has been very good. I'm looking forward to this Dallas game. I'm previewing it with you on Friday. I expect a different Eagles team. I think all the negativity that, forget this show, like, sports radio and everything, and everybody's got to get fired. And so I think that's going to light a fire under them. It's not going to make them perfect. They're still going to have mistakes and areas, but they can play a lot better. So I look forward to that.
Yeah, and the other thing is Sirianni's got to go back and make sure he handles situation a little better. When you're down by more than 2 touchdowns after the Niners scored that last touchdown with 5 minutes left, pull your starters.
Yes.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Okay, that was absurd. That's just, to me, inexcusable. You got to be smarter than that.
Yep.
He in fact, he got it wrong when he was asked about it Monday. He got the score wrong.
Yeah, he said it was a one-possession game.
No, he said whatever he said was completely false. I'm a big Sirianni fan. I've defended him when he had the bad press conference. I've told people not to overdo it. He'll be fine. He has been. He's a great coach. Mm-hmm. But you don't put your team in harm's way down 23 with 5 minutes left. Do the math. Come on, it's got to be better.
Yeah. Actually, I think he said it was like a 2-possession game, but yeah, that was incorrect.
He's wrong. It's 20. Yeah, 23.
Yeah. All right. Isn't that a famous Andy Reid line? You can do the math when they got a couple of missed field goals from Akers in a playoff game. I think we lost.
You know better than I.
Lost by 6. You do the math. I forget what it was.
Oh, okay, that's funny. Okay.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds.